My name is Clyde Corbett. I'm originally from Burgaw, which is about 25 miles north of Wilmington, and I went into service in 1943 at Fort Bragg, and there they did assign me to the Air Corps, and from there I went home after I signed up to go to the Air Corps. And from there, I went back in about a week. And from there, I went to Keesler Field, Mississippi, in order to take my basic training. And from there, I went to Denver, Colorado, to take my armor training there. And then from there, as I recall, we went to Las Vegas, Nevada, to take training, gunnery training from from an airplane that the pilot sat in front, I sat in the back where the machine gun was, and we were fired a target that was pulled by another plane. And so from there we left and went to Salt Lake City, where we would be assigned to crews there. And at that point the doctor found that I was deaf in one ear. I'd already told them when I joined that I was, but they went ahead and didn't put it on my record. And so there they took me off. They would not assign me to a crew because of my hearing, and they sent me to Pueblo, Colorado. And there I was head of the gunnery range there. I'd already got my promotion to staff sergeant there. And once there, that's where all the planes came through to be trained for the B-24. And there I learned that I could sign a waiver for my ears and be assigned to a crew. So I did. I signed a waiver that I wouldn't hold a service responsible for my hearing. And so I was assigned to a crew there, and I was assigned as a ball turret gunner because the one that had dropped out, for some reason or other, was a ball turret gunner with the crew. And so there I was assigned. And so after training there, we got orders to go overseas. And so there we went up into New Hampshire, where it was so cold. But and in fact they told us there that if we noticed any of our buddies' ears were turning white, be sure and tell them, because they were being frozen. And so after being there for a few days, we left there and to go overseas in the plane. And we went from there into Bermuda. Before we got to Bermuda, though, we were taking all of our jackets, and because it was getting hotter. And so when we got there, we landed. It's just beautiful there. And so we stayed there for perhaps a week. For some reason, I don't know why we stayed there that long. But then from there, we left and went on over. We flew over Africa and landed in Morocco, and stayed there for maybe a day. And then from there, we went on over Sicily on into Italy, and we landed in a place there called Formosa. And there, the first time I ever landed on a steel mats there, they had built an airport there, and that's how they built them in a hurry by laying these steel mats down. And it sounded like, when you landed, it sounded like you was on a tin roof coming in or something. But anyway, it worked out fine. And so then we were there, actually we were there until the war was over. We didn't get there until late in 1943. I believe it was 44 we got there. And so then from there we would fly missions to Yugoslavia and northern Italy, and also into southern Germany. And most of as I recall, our targets were railroads, uh, and also fuel supplies. And so our missions probably would last from 8 to 9 hours, and we were in the air that long. But we would be briefed before we left. Of the morning, we'd get up maybe at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast. Then we would be briefed as to where we were going. And the pilots, our pilots, they were briefed in a different area. They were not briefed where we were. And they were told things that they needed to know. And so then we would leave. We'll go out, the trucks come by and pick us up, and we'll go out to the airport and then put on our clothes. The time we got there, we were real fortunate because they had heated suits that we put on. We put those on, then put our heavy coats over the top, and we plugged those into the plane, and we just turn up the thermostat on that, and it would keep us warm, thank goodness. We even had gloves too. So we were much better off than those that came ahead of us. And so we would leave, and then we would go. The one thing that I remembered was that usually I would felt kind of sick, even when I was in training. I would get sick in the air, but when I in training, but I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to know that I got sick. But I didn't vomit or anything of that sort. So, but when we would take off from Italy to go on a mission, I would lay down on the floor of the plane because I felt better until after we got up airborne. Then we would, then I would get up and put on did whatever I needed to do. My job, one of my jobs on the plane, other than being in the ball turret, before we get in the ball turret, once we got airborne, I would have to go up and pull the pins out of the bombs and go through the catwalk in the bomb bay, pull the pins out so that when they fell, the propeller on the end of the bombs would start turning so that when they got to the ground, they would explode. And on the very first mission, we didn't drop our bombs. We kept going over the target, and I would hear the bomb bay doors open, and I hear bomb bay doors close, and then finally we decided not to drop the bombs that time, so we brought them back. So I had to go back through the bomb bay, on the catwalk through the bomb bay, and put the pins back in so that if they fell off on the ground or joggled or loose or something, they wouldn't explode. So I only got in 15 missions. After 30 missions, we could come home, but at that time. But we got in 15 missions when the war was over, and so we were so delighted that it was over. And so then we went to from Formosa. We were shipped out over to Bari, which is on the Mediterranean Sea. It was a port there. And we waited there for maybe a month before we got on a plane to come back. And so I was fortunate. I flew over and I flew back. So on the way back, we stopped in Africa, and there we got off the runway, so we got stuck in the sand, so we had to wait for a day or so for them to get us out of the sand back on the airport. So from there we went on over, I think it was Brazil we came through, and it was quite a contrast because in Africa everything was dry, everything was parched. In Brazil it was so beautiful, it was completely green, just dark green and everything. So we stayed there for a day or so. Then we came back into Savannah, Georgia, and from there we took a train, came on into Greensboro. That's where I was discharged. I wasn't discharged at that time, but we were relocated, reassigned to go to Pacific. and so we didn't have leave right then. So I came on home, was married in July, and so we were on a honeymoon all the way back from Myrtle Beach. Went to Myrtle Beach, and we was at a hotel in Raleigh when we learned that the bombs had been dropped, the atomic bombs, and the war was over in Pacific, so we knew I didn't have to go there. So went on back to Greensboro. I was discharged, and things worked out real well for us.
Well, Clyde, very interesting story, and got a good friend right here with you, Worth Weitzel, and you guys are real buddies, and Worth saw it from the angle of the ground perspective, and his story has been told too. Let me ask you this question: What experiences did you have in the Air Force and in military life that you maybe learned and it maybe assisted you? What did you take from your experience in the Air Force that you've used throughout life?
Well, I think that anyone goes into the service as well as Worth, anyone else, that you learn things in service that you carry the rest of your life. I know that with me, I know even around the house that I keep things in order that I would not have otherwise. But in service, it teaches you that you need to keep things in order, and some of the things that you learn, you do carry the rest of your life. And actually, I didn't like some of the things I had to do and places over there, but it has helped me all the way through, and I think it would help anyone. And I personally think that it'd be a good thing if everyone had to serve at least a year or two in service, that it would help them the rest of their life too.